Hey guys, welcome to Book with Keba, the podcast where we talk about books, reading culture, and all opinions that come with being emotionally attached to fictional characters. I'm your host, Keba. Whether you're reading on a Kindle, listening to an audiobook, or trying to get out of a reading slump, I'm glad you're here. So grab your current read, your favorite drink, and let's get booked. Can we talk about Black romance? Today's episode is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a while because as a reader, we all have those conversations where someone says something about a genre that makes you stop and think. And one conversation I keep hearing, especially from readers who haven't explored much Black romance, is I don't really read Black romance because it's always full of trauma, or I read to escape. I don't want to read about difficult things happening all the time. And honestly, I understand where that comes from because if the only books someone has been introduced to are books that center around intense situation, violence, crime, survival, or heavy emotional themes, then that might become their entire understanding of what Black romance is. But here's the thing. Is that really Black romance? Or is it just one section of Black romance? Because today I want to ask a question. Can we stop acting like Black romance is just one shelf? But because it isn't. Black romance is not one story, it is not one experience, it's not one type of relationship, and it's definitely not limited to one type of character, one type of setting, or one type of conflict. Why this is so important to me is because I actually had conversations with people close to me who have said they avoid Black romance because they believe it's too heavy and they believe it's always about trauma. They believe it's always about abuse. They believe it's always about something painful happening to the characters. And I remember thinking, have you actually explored different side of Black romance? And this was a very pivotal moment for us in that conversation for me to introduce new side of Black romance or the side that they have never explored. Because the more I read, the more I realize something. Black romance is not a lane. It's a whole world. There are stories that will make you cry. There are stories that will make you angry. There are stories that will have you on the edge of your seat because there's also story that will make you smile. And I love actually reading those ones. Stories that will make you believe in love, stories about healing, stories about friendship, stories about family, stories about two people finding each other and building something beautiful. And those stories deserve just as much attention. Let's get into it. What is Black romance? Before I go any further, let's actually talk about what Black romance mean. Because I think the problem is that people sometimes treat Black romance like it's a specific genre, but it's not. Black romance is an umbrella for me. It simply means that the central love story features Black characters, not black and white characters, both Black characters. That's the foundation. But everything else can change. The Black romance can be contemporary romance. It can be historical romance. It can be fantasy, paranormal, sports, small town, romantic suspense, billionaire, workplace, second chance romance, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers. It is fake dating and slow burn. The same way romance as a whole has a different category, Black romance has different categories too. Because Black people are not only one experience. So why would the love story only be one experience? Talk to me. When people hear Black romance, sometimes the first thing that comes to mind is a very specific type of story. And maybe it's a story involving the street, maybe it's crime, maybe struggle, survival. And again, those stories exist, but those stories matters. True, those stories have their readers who love them, like myself. I do indulge in those sometimes, but they're not the entire picture because Black people also fall in love in coffee shop. They fall in love at universities, hospitals, fantasy kingdoms are built around them. In small towns, they build businesses and fall in love. They're falling in love while healing from their past. They're falling in love while simply just living a regular life. There's room for all of these stories. Now let's talk about urban romance because this is where I think a lot of confusion happens. A lot of people use black romance and urban romance like it means the same thing, but really it's not. They're not the same. Urban romance is a subgenre within black romance. This is one section of the bookshelf. Let's think about that. Urban romance often focus on city environment, street culture, crime, gang dynamics, survival, family loyalty, power struggle, high stake relationship, characters overcoming difficult circumstances. Many urban romance deal with harsh realities that other people are facing. They may explore trauma, poverty, violence, betrayal, and difficult choices, but they also can explore loyalty, redemption, family, community, love in difficult situations, and growth and transformation. And I want to make something very clear. Urban romance deserves its flowers, hands down, without even thinking twice. It has created some unforgettable stories. It has authors who have built incredible careers from. It has readers who connect deeply with those stories. This episode is not saying that urban romance is bad because it isn't. The point simply is urban romance is just one shelf, not the entire bookstore. And this is where I think we need to have a bigger conversation because if someone walks into a bookstore and pick up one mafia romance, they understand that mafia romance is not all romance. They pick up one dark romance and they understand dark romance. It's just its own category. So why sometimes we allow one category of black romance to represent all black romance? And that's where we're going next because I want to talk about why the perception exists, how social media plays a role, and why so many beautiful black love stories are being missed. First and foremost, why does this perception exist? Know that we have talked about black romance and we get the whole gist of what black romance is and what urban romance is. I want to talk about something that's more important. Why do so many people have the idea that black romance is only one type of story? Why do so many readers immediately associate black romance with trauma? And I think there's a few reasons. One of the biggest reasons is exposure. A lot of readers discovers book through social media now. And before, it's just word of mouth. We have Book Talk, BookTube, Instagram, Bookstagram, and different reading communities where people share recommendation every single day. And I love that. I think it's beautiful that readers can find authors and the books they may have never discovered otherwise. But there's also something that happens with social media. The books that get the most attention are often the books that create the biggest reaction. The books that make people say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened." The plot twist is crazy. I stayed up all night reading this. The drama was intense. And there's nothing wrong with these books that have you in these moments. Some of my favorite books have made me feel the exact emotions. Staying up all night, getting to read them, and getting to the plot twist. But the problem is when those books become the only representation people see, because then someone who has never explored black romance online thinks, okay, this must be what black romance is. And that's where I think we miss out on so many amazing stories. Something I've learned as a reader is that what is popular does not always represent everything that exists. Sometimes the algorithm keeps showing us the same type of books because those books perform well. And I do understand that because when I just entered onto Book Talk, you're seeing books from Colleen Hoover, you're seeing books from Sarah J. Maas and other authors that are popular, but at the same time, this does not represent the brunt of it. It's the same books, 10 books that you see pop up everywhere. And that is something that I really do understand. It doesn't represent the entire Book Talk. It does not represent the entire Bookstagram, nor does it represent the entire BookTube and what everybody's reading at the same time. It's just what works well. People are talking about them, people are reacting to them, people are creating content around them. But there are thousands of books sitting quietly that readers may never discover, and probably because smaller accounts don't get the same reaction, you never discover them. You know those moments when you pick up a book thinking, I don't know if this is for me, and then suddenly you're halfway through it and you're like, wait, why did anyone tell me about this? Those are the books I want more readers to find because Black romance has so many of those hidden gems. The idea that some readers avoid Black romance is because they feel like it's too traumatic. And again, I want to say this carefully. Understand wanting books that feel like an escape, reading can be a safe place. Sometimes we don't want heavy topics. Sometimes we want something that's comforting. Sometimes we want books where we can relax and enjoy watching two people falling in love. And that's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think we need to have a bigger conversation. Trauma exists in many romance subgenres, and it's not exclusive to Black romance. Let's compare. I think about some of the most popular romance subgenres. Take mafia romance. Mafia romance is extremely popular, and I understand why. People love the danger, the power dynamic, the intensity. The idea of a character who is feared by everyone else and he becomes vulnerable to one person. Those stories can be addictive. But let's be honest about what some of those stories include. They're mafia romance, where characters experience kidnapping, violence, betrayal, manipulation, psychological trauma, threats, dangerous environment, abuse of power. They're stories where the main characters go through incredible dark experience before finding safety or love. And readers will often describe those books intense, dark, emotional, addictive. And again, those books can be enjoyed. But this is not a criticism of mafia romance. I enjoy seeing readers love the story that speaks to them. But what I'm finding interesting is that if we understand those elements are a part of a subgenre, we don't look at one mafia romance and say, well, that's all romance. We say that's mafia romance and we understand the category because the same people that are talking about the Black romance is so traumatic are the same people that are reading dark romance, are reading these mafia romance where this young lady is being kidnapped or she's being abused by her family and she ran away and gone to the enemy side. They psychologically abuse her or probably abuse her at some point because they think that she's a rat. And this man fall in love with her gradually after finding out that, hey, she is just a lonely soul that needs his help. And then something happened, boom. And he thinks that she is a traitor. He starts to abuse her or kick her out in the cold. And that's fun time. But yeah, Black romance, yeah, it's too traumatic because people are having shootouts and everything like that. The girl is having struggle of that over there that you just read in mafia romance is not struggle. That is not traumatic. Is that what you're saying? I believe that the same thing should apply to Black romance in the sense that same understanding. Why do we sometimes take one type of Black romance, one type of story, one type of conflict and use it to represent an entire category, but you're not doing it to other genre? I want to challenge you guys because this is something that needed to be done. Because the problem isn't that those stories exist. Stories about survival should exist. Come on. Stories about people overcoming painful circumstances, they have their readers. And those stories can be powerful. The problem is when people believe that that is the only story available. This is something I think about often. Black characters deserve to exist in every romance category, not just in stories where they're overcoming something and experiencing struggle of. They deserve soft stories, soft love, funny stories. They deserve ridiculous meet cutes. They deserve vacation romance, magical adventures. They deserve to fall in love with a billionaire. They deserve cozy romance. They deserve where the biggest conflict. Why aren't these people finally admitting that they like each other? That's supposed to be the biggest conflict in some of these books. And I think sometimes readers forget that. Black Joy also is a story worth telling and is being read. I have discovered so many Black romances that remind me this is what I was looking for. Books where characters are just living. Books where love story is not all about surviving sometimes. Books where relationship itself is the focus. Books where the book is focusing on friendship, family, career goals, personal growth, healing, laughter, and romance. Sometimes those stories remind you love can be beautiful, and those stories deserve the same energy and excitement. So, no, we've talked about the perception. We've talked about why some readers feel like Black romance is the only one type of story. No, I want to talk about my favorite part, the books. Because honestly, sometimes the best way to change someone's mind is it's not through a debate, it's through a recommendation. And I've done this before. It's through handing someone a book saying, trust me, just try this one. Because there's so many beautiful Black romance stories waiting to discover. And I think readers don't realize how much variety actually out there. One of my favorite authors that I always think about when it says soft Black romance is A.E. Valdez. Anything in her catalog is a beautiful Black story that is a soft girl. She falling in love, and it's really a beautiful story to get behind. Her books are a great example of where I have started in this conversation. I think about a worthy love, and it shows a different side. People fall in love. That entire series right there was a beautiful story. They show Black characters experiencing love, the vulnerability, connection, and emotional intimacy. They show a relationship where the focus is not just on what the characters are surviving. It's about who they are, their dreams, their aspiration, their fear, their healing process, and in the end, their happiness. Because sometimes we forget that softness is also a part of the Black experience. I want to appreciate about Black romance author is that they don't shy away from real life. I think that is important because beautiful romance does not mean a perfect life. Characters can have struggles, they can have insecurities, they can have things that they're working through, but the story doesn't have to center on suffering. The book can acknowledge difficulties while still giving readers hope. The balance is what makes so many of these stories special. One of the biggest lessons I've learned as a reader is that you cannot judge an entire character based on one author. Every author brings their own voice, their own experience, their own style, and that's what I encourage readers to branch out. If you read one Black romance and it wasn't for you, that's okay. But don't stop there. There's several different genres that you can touch on because you might discover something that you've never expected to love. Some of those authors that I do want to recommend are A. Valdez, as I said, Alexandria House, Christina C. Jones, Farah Rochan, Cynthia Williams, Kennedy Ryan, of course, that's my girl right there. Those authors explores different type of love story, from emotional journeys to everyday romance, relationship, family, healing, and personal growth. And for Kennedy Ryan book, if anybody doesn't know, you always can learn something from them. There's something that needs to bring awareness to that you can learn about. I also enjoy urban romance and incredible authors in that space, including Jacqueline J, Casey Mills, Siobhan Latrice, Lady Nisha, and again, these categories do matter. I love a good urban romance and also love a soft contemporary romance where love is the greatest thing that is being showed there, the coziness. Here's my challenge to all readers. The next time you say, I don't read Black romance, ask yourself, have I actually explored Black romance, or have I only explored one section of it? Because those are two different things. It's like saying, I don't like movies when the only movie you have ever watched is horror movies. Maybe horror isn't your thing. It's not a lot of people thing, but hey, it has its people. That doesn't mean that you don't like movies. Maybe your thing is comedy or romance or documentary. You just haven't found your categories yet. And I want to make this very clear. This conversation is not about removing one type of story. Urban romance has its place. Dark romance has its place. Emotional romance has its place. Soft girl era romance has its place. And every story has readers who need it. Every author has a story worth telling. The goal is not replacing one shelf. The goal is to recognize the entire bookstore. because Black romance is not one shelf, it's a whole bookstore. When I think about why I love reading, it's because books allows us to experience lives, emotions, and perspectives outside of our own. And I think that's what makes exploring different types of romance is so beautiful. You might pick up a book expecting one thing and find something completely different. You might discover an author you've never heard of. You might find a story that stays with you long after you close those books. So if you ever hesitate about Black romance because you think you already know what it offers, I encourage you to explore. Try something outside of your comfort zone. Try an author you've never read. Try a recommendation that surprises you, because there's so many stories waiting for you. And trust me, you have not seen the whole bookshelf as yet. Thanks for spending some time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. It really helps more readers to find this show. I would also love to hear from you. What is a Black romance book that changed your perspective? And what a book you think more readers should know about? Share your recommendation, because the best part of being a reader is discovering new stories together. You can also connect with me on other platforms. Until next time, happy reading and stay booked.